Was it a mistake, a misstep of her not to go to Joe Rogan?
Well, I don't know if she's going to ultimately do it. I mean, there's still a few days left until the election. I can say personally, I do hope she does the Joe Rogan podcast. To your exact point, I think it is a great opportunity to reach a lot of people. I don't think that Joe Rogan is an especially contentious interviewer. I think a lot of times he's ignorant on what he speaks to.
Joe Rogan is the biggest podcast in the world. It is a huge missed opportunity for them to put parameters on it. This has nothing to do with not campaigning in Texas or Pennsylvania or North Carolina. That podcast goes global. It's short-sighted. I wonder what they're hiding by not having her do it. I wish she would. I've always wished from day one. I just want to hear her policies. It took a long time for us to get those, even on her website. So I think it's a missed opportunity. I think Americans are seeing these missed opportunities, and I do think Donald Trump will win.
If you enjoy content like this, then make sure you leave a like and subscribe to the channel. It really does help me out a ton. Let's get back to the video. Sage Steele went on Piers Morgan's show, Piers Morgan Uncensored, and absolutely annihilated this woke idiot Brian Tyler Cohen for multiple different ridiculous takes. Of course, he's part of the woke cult, so they have to, one-up themselves on how ridiculously woke they are in order to even keep their card from getting revoked from the woke cult. But Sage Steele had to put him in his place. Let's get into this clip here of Sage Steele and Brian Tyler Cohen going at it in this heated debate here on Piers Morgan Uncensored.
But I'm telling you, even for me, and I voted for Donald Trump last week, it was too brotastic. Okay? It was. You're trying to win an election in which you're hemorrhaging female voters. Maybe when you present in front of hundreds, thousands at least, at Madison Square Garden, you clean up the bro talk just a little so you don't alienate women in the middle of America who are already on the fence about Republicans.
No, Sage, I was there. It was pretty brotastic. There's no denying that. You had a procession of very bro-sounding speakers. And a new CBS poll says that women are breaking 55-43 for Harris, men 54-45 for Trump. Should Trump be doing more in these last few days to reach across to potential female voters?
I believe that clip was, the context of it was in relation to the comedian and the Puerto Rico comment that, of course, stirred up so much
she was talking. She was talking about the whole thing.
In general, okay. I was there as well. I saw you outside just before. I think back to the women that were there. A friend of mine, Tulsi Gabbard, right, who is as classy and a strong woman as we will find in this country. Alina Habib, the lawyer. How about Melania Trump? I would have loved to continue to see more women there, but I didn't feel that in the moment being there, looking around, and especially with the, 20,000 people, at least half being women there. And also, I will say this, I have been volunteering for the past couple of, I guess, probably about a month now. I don't know if you've seen the pink jackets that Women for Trump are wearing. And I've been going around the country.
Was it a mistake, a misstep of her not to go to Joe Rogan?
Well, I don't know if she's going to ultimately do it. I mean, there's still a few days left until the election. I can say personally, I do hope she does the Joe Rogan podcast. To your exact point, I think it is a great opportunity to reach a lot of people. I don't think that Joe Rogan is an especially contentious interviewer. I think a lot of times he's ignorant on what he speaks to.
Talking to women, supporting women's businesses. We've been going to food banks, and it's led by Lara Trump, and Tulsi's been there, and Danica Patrick's been there, and Elizabeth Pipko, and so many women who are just coming together and volunteering as women. Because I think so often we're told, how can you be a woman and support Donald Trump? And there's obviously millions of women who do. And so I think it's just been really fascinating for me, never having done any of this before. I mean, this is the last thing I thought I would be doing, is doing anything political or with campaigns, but going into these communities and talking to women of color, people. I cannot tell you how many women and men, but women have come up to me in my travels, in airports, on the streets here in New York City, and just said why they're voting for Donald Trump and how pissed off they are that they're told they shouldn't, based on whatever someone else's opinion is. So I do think that they are doing more as a campaign. I do, because I'm part of it.
Okay. Brian, conversely to you, I was surprised Kamala Harris didn't fly and do Joe Rogan in Joe Rogan's podcast studio. It's the biggest in the country. Trump got 40 million people so far have watched that interview. It's a great way to get to men where she's clearly struggling. We saw that off-guard clip of her talking about she needs to get a better resonance with male voters. Was it a mistake, a misstep of her not to go to Joe Rogan?
Well, I don't know if she's going to ultimately do it. I mean, there's still a few days left until the election. I can say personally, I do hope she does the Joe Rogan podcast. To your exact point, I think it is a great opportunity to reach a lot of people. I don't think that Joe Rogan is an especially contentious interviewer. I think a lot of times he's ignorant on what he speaks to and open to hearing other perspectives. So I think that this would be a good opportunity for her to do it. Look, everything is just a matter of time and opportunity cost. Spending 3 hours in the state of Texas, which isn't exactly a swing state in the presidential election right now, as much as I hope it would be, it means that she wouldn't be able to spend that time in Nevada or Wisconsin or Arizona or Pennsylvania, Michigan, like these other states. So I do, to your exact point, I do hope that ultimately she does make the time. I think 3 hours is a big ask in these final last few days of the election. Every minute in this campaign counts. And so I think that there could be some compromise there. What I hope didn't happen is that he said, okay, well, we're either going to do 3 hours in Texas or nothing, as a kind of a way to pretend that he offered her the platform. But so I do hope that there is some compromise if she is able to make some time.
Yeah, and finally, Brian, who do you think is going to win?
I think that Kamala Harris I would rather be Kamala Harris than Donald Trump right now. But look, it's going to be tight. It's going to be close.
By the way, on that Joe Rogan point, number one, Kamala Harris is kind of in hiding right now. She's not doing much. Yeah, she's doing rallies here and there. But if you look at Donald Trump's schedule versus Kamala Harris's schedule, it's not even close who the busier one is. So to say that Kamala Harris is not going on Joe Rogan's podcast because she's too busy and she doesn't want to fly halfway across the country before an election is ridiculous, especially considering the reward that you get for doing Joe Rogan's podcast. You get 40 million people in 3 days or whatever it was that Donald Trump got. It's ridiculous to say that the reason why you're denying that many eyeballs, which you can't get without paying advertisers to be, to be show your ads on, Sunday, NFL Sunday. The only way that you can get those kind of eyeballs is by paying that amount of money to get in front of those people who are watching football on Sunday. And also, you're not sitting across from Joe Rogan, which is in people's subconscious mind a cosign that you are at least a normal enough human to sit at the same table as us, So to be able to get organically 50 million people to watch, not just a 30-second ad, but a 3-hour podcast getting to know you, it is priceless. And I don't mean just money-wise. I mean time and energy and travel. It is absolutely priceless. The only reason why Kamala Harris wouldn't have gone on Joe Rogan, wouldn't have accepted it, is because she's scared that he might ask a question that she doesn't know the answer to, which is basically every single question that has to do with policy. She's never answered a question straight up. So that's why. It's not because it's ridiculous to ask her to travel a few days before an election. It's the best opportunity any politician could possibly ask for, is to go on Joe Rogan's podcast. And Donald Trump is busier than Kamala Harris. Donald Trump also had to fly across the country to get to Texas to do Joe Rogan's podcast. It's just all nonsense, man.
Let's not pretend that either one of these people has a clear path right now with regard to the polling. I think that, especially with regard to the blue wall states, Michigan, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania, I would, again, rather be Kamala Harris than Donald Trump right now. But I think, it is, if the polling has shown us anything, it's that everything is within the margin of error. Everything is basically tied at this point. So we can look at the enthusiasm gap, for example. We saw, I believe it was a Wall Street Journal poll today that showed that Democrats have a 77% enthusiasm rate versus, I think it was a 67% for Republicans. So there is a gap right now between Democrats and Republicans. Hopefully that translates to actual votes, but it's anyone's guess.
And Sage, I mean, talking of enthusiasm, Trump's put a lot of time and effort into doing a lot of these podcasts directly aimed at younger men. They've got to turn out to reward that effort he's put in. Do you think they will? And do you think Trump will win?
It's interesting. I voted yesterday. I'm a recent resident. I just moved down to the free state of Florida, and I was blown away at the line for early voting. And it's obviously a Broward County, and there's many options, and people were there for hours. And so I I saw men, women, kids, handicapped, minority, you name it. Everybody was there. I do think they're going to turn out. And I will say this real quick. Joe Rogan is the biggest podcast in the world. It is a huge missed opportunity for them to put parameters on it. This has nothing to do with not campaigning in Texas or Pennsylvania or North Carolina. That podcast goes global. It's short-sighted. I wonder what they're hiding by not having her do it. I wish she would. I've always wished from day one. I just want to hear her policies. It took a long time for us to get those, even on her website. So I think it's a missed opportunity. I think Americans are seeing these missed opportunities, and I do think Donald Trump will win.
Okay. Sage, Brian, but thank you both very much indeed. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Piers.
What do you guys think? Who do you think is going to win? I obviously, last election I thought Trump was going to win. This election I think Trump's going to win. I'm a whole lot more weary about that this time around because last time I kind of came out of nowhere that Trump lost. I couldn't believe that somebody would vote for a senile man over a guy who tweeted out a few mean things. It blew my mind. But hey, if Donald Trump can lose to a dude whose brain has the functionality of an 8-year-old, I think he could lose to Kamala Harris, even though her brain functionality is pretty damn close. She's not as bad as Joe Biden. So I do think it's possible that Trump could lose. That being said, just me, I go on jogs every day, jogging around my neighborhood and everything. Every other house basically has a Trump sign in their front yard. And I have never seen anything like that. Not in 2016, not in 2020, not until now have I ever seen anything like that for any candidate. And I don't see a singular Kamala Harris sign anywhere. So it's big for people to put Trump signs in their lawn. That is big because you don't get canceled. You don't lose your job for being a Kamala Harris or Joe Biden supporter. But if you are labeled a Trump supporter, you could very well lose your job. Depending on where you work, you can 100% lose your job. You can get canceled off social media. All these things can happen. So to have people that motivated, that passionate about this election, so that so many Trump signs are in their yard, I do think that's a positive sign. Obviously, the polling looks pretty good for Trump. The early voting looks pretty good for Trump. But I felt like that going into the last election as well. I felt like that, even on election night, just waking up the next day, seeing how the votes kind of came in overnight for the other side, it really woke me up to the fact that there could be nefarious things going on. Also, regardless of if there is or not, I'm not going to be overly confident about this next election. Feel pretty good, but also still pretty scared. Let me know in the comments. What do you guys think about this election? Also, what do you think about this Sage Steele versus Brian Tyler Cohen debate? Thought it was a pretty good one. Sage Steele definitely did a pretty good job and destroyed this woke idiot, Brian Tyler Cohen. Let me know in the comments what you think about the Sage Steele versus Brian Tyler Cohen debate here on Piers Morgan Uncensored.